Addiction Connections Resource is a nonprofit organization here in Harford County that works to prevent substance abuse, advance treatment, and help with recovery to all those suffering from the disease of addiction here in Harford County. Join us in the next 30 minutes as we speak to the staff, some people that have recovered, and community members that have all come together to help fight this huge epidemic. I'm Christy Breslin, and this is Harford MagaScene. As we all know, the opioid epidemic has taken such a grasp here on Harford County. It's really taken a grasp on the whole country. So we have a real need for addiction resources here in Harford County. I'm lucky enough to be joined with the Executive Director of Addiction Connections Resource, Linda Williams. Linda, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you.
Now, Linda, tell me about ACR.
ACR is a nonprofit that was started, grassroots here in Harford County, started over 20 years ago by 4 mothers who knew there was a problem in the county. And we were trying to get people to listen to us. I have to say Senator Hooper and Ronnie Chenoweth did listen to us, but unfortunately they weren't around for much longer because they had both passed. So after that, we really struggled to get people to say there was a problem here. They did not want to hear that. There was no problem here. That was a city problem. They really wanted us to stop even saying there was a problem. But I was already watching young people die at that point from addiction. And it wasn't where you would think it would be. It was in Jarrettsville, Bel Air, Boston. That's where the main group of people, they were bringing it in to party because it had gotten pure, the heroin. So you didn't have to shoot it. So they were going downtown, bringing it in, partying, and they didn't realize how easily and how quickly they would become addicted. They didn't think they would become addicted.
Well, when you started it, you told us why you started it. When did you start it, and how has it grown?
Well, I was sort of like the neighborhood mom, so people started coming to me. And then May Abraham, who co-founder of Father Martin's Ashley, had told me about a little heroin task force that happened to be going on back then in Harford County. And I went to meet people there, and I hooked up or connected with 2 other mothers and then one in Cecil County that were seeing the same issue and problem. One mother had lost her child, Barbara Mason. So we all got together. I think if we wouldn't have found each other, we wouldn't have started it. But in the beginning, we wanted people treated the way we wanted to be treated, the way we wanted our children treated. And people were just lost because they didn't even know where to begin. So we started seeing parents lose their 401ks and grandparents losing their houses, and insurance companies not letting people get treatment till they failed IOP, intensive outpatient, 9 times or things like that. So we could see what was going on, but there was such a stigma to it, a real stigma. So back then, maybe we started helping about 10 people a year, and we were like really the first peer recovery specialists. We went to court with them, we went to the probation with them, we wrote letters, we would take them to the therapist if they needed to go to a therapist, and we stayed in touch, and DOLAD had started a family support group back then, and the families would come in, and we got a lot of our young people that we worked with too from that, because the families were desperately looking for help. But we went from maybe helping 10 people a year to last year we helped 777 people.
Wow.
We're the first in the state to do what we do. There aren't very many people that do what we do, and we were begging for help from every direction, but nobody was interested because there was no money in it. Now that there's money in it, they're coming out of the woodwork to help, or not really, so I consider we didn't care about the money, and then I eventually lost my own daughter.
Oh, Linda, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And then eventually, when we finally got people to pay attention to us again, was when Governor Hogan put me on his task force. Then finally people were listening again. But we were also lucky enough to have Joe Ryan be the head of our Office of Drug Control Policy, because when he came into the county, he was willing to work with us and think outside the box with us. He wasn't, he stood with us to fight this. So I think our county, when I was on the task force, I would hear from many people how our county was ahead. And they really credited Joe and myself with the reason that we seemed to be ahead in doing things than the other counties. And our numbers weren't as bad because we were helping people. But sometimes it's $300. It makes a difference in somebody's life.
How would you say that ACR is different than other community-based organizations?
Well, we don't just connect the person to treatment or a halfway house. We try to stay in touch with them for a year. And if they need relapse prevention therapy, then we try to connect them with that. If that needs to be paid for, then we pay for it. We're also right now helping young children with mental health problems where, you cannot find enough counselors out there to take Medicaid. So if a child, to me, that's prevention. Young children are having mental health issues, then we try to connect them with help, and we will pay the copay or what they need. And we also run a grief group for children that have lost someone they love to addiction. We've also united the halfway houses to work together and set a quality and standards for themselves. The other thing, we've done is we've joined together with the other community-based organizations throughout the state, and we've formed MARCO. Now, don't ask me what it is. Maryland, it's the Maryland Association of Recovery Community Organizations.
So you got it.
Okay, so what we consider community-based is people that cannot charge. We don't charge. We don't charge our clients. We don't charge insurance companies. We're hands-on, boots on the ground. And we follow the client for a year. Like I said, if they need it longer, we follow them longer. There's clients that we don't. But when we started this, people a year later, only 3% were sober. We're working on those numbers right now, but I bet you at least 50% of our clients a year later are sober because they're getting the hands-on treatment and to the resources that they needed to stay strong in their recovery.
Absolutely. And this is such a great resource for Harford County. So anybody that maybe thinks they could benefit from your services, how do they get started?
All they have to do is call us. We answer the phones 8 to 10, 7 days a week. And we have a peer recovery specialist that will answer the phones and do intakes and try to connect you with what you need. I know that everyone thinks that insurance covers everything and Medicaid is doing everything, but they're not. There's still many people that fall through the cracks. And like we had a doctor call me about a young man. He was 18 years old and just had a heart transplant. And he was doing some drugs and he was worried and he wanted to put him in Karen, but he was on Medicaid. So Karen was lovely and gave us a discounted price, and we paid for that young man to go to Karen because he wouldn't have gotten help otherwise. Absolutely. And we have many stories like that.
Linda, thank you again so much for taking the time and really for all that you've provided for the citizens of Harford County.
Well, I believe it's an important subject, so thank you.
Absolutely. And coming up next, we're going to hear more about the various resources they offer to the community and also about intake. Stay with us. Clayton Appleby is a peer support supervisor here at ACR. He has quite a story to tell. He struggled with addiction himself, and now he is here to tell us what recovery is like and how he helps all the people that come in to the facility. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Clayton, what exactly is a peer support supervisor?
So I think it's kind of difficult to define our roles because we do so much across the board. We're a small team and we all work together really hard to cover all the different aspects of what we do here, from getting the clients' intakes completed to checking up on them. Everyone here is super hands-on. So I guess the best way I can put what I do is help people that are ready and willing to take steps in recovery, figure out the steps that they need to take, and kind of stay there with them to take those steps and follow them along their early journey, which is so important for early recovery.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of people don't understand what intake means. Can you kind of walk me through the intake process?
Yeah, an intake is pretty simple. It's just if we have someone new that's coming in off the street or coming from treatment, we get contacted at all different points of recovery. So some people will call us from the hospital, some at the end of their 30-day stay. We just, to make them a client, we just go through a process of, asking them interview questions. It's like a application almost, I guess you could say. So.
Now, for somebody that's going through it and is maybe thinking, I need to get in recovery, but how do I do it? What would be the first step?
Honestly, that's kind of a difficult question because people who call us have already taken that first step. Every now and then we get clients who are kind of sitting on the fence, and we just try to get them there through motivational interviewing techniques and some other stuff that's like recommended by the peer training courses. So we'll try to get them there through motivational interviewing, but I personally try to stay away from telling people that they have a problem and telling them what they need to do, because a lot of addicts, I myself am an addict, so I understand this, don't like being told what to do. So we try to get them there through like like motivational interviewing and just trying to come at it from like a non-judgmental point of view, I think, and telling them what's possible.
Well, you are proof that you can go on to live a very successful, fulfilling life after recovery. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I got sober, actually April 4th was my 8 years.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so I got sober in 2015 and came down to start my life over really in Maryland. And, I did it through going to rehab, going to sober living type of thing afterwards, staying connected to people in recovery in 12-step groups, and then just slowly my life, started getting better and just continuing to be better. And I'm lucky enough to work here where I can give back and help other people out where they're in the same situation I was at, where I can look at them and really relate, because I was sitting in that same spot myself a couple years ago.
So Clayton, as someone that has been sitting in that same spot a couple of years ago, what would you like to say to viewers who are struggling and are trying to decide, should I get help or not?
Just that if it wasn't worth it, I wouldn't still be sober, period. Like, it's not like, the gifts you get through sobriety just outweigh the drama and the tension of the stuff that you put up with on a daily basis when you're stuck in active addiction. So, I mean, I wouldn't trade it back. And I got sober when I was young, so my priorities weren't all there. So I was like worried about, am I still going to have a good time? And I would just say, like, if being sober wasn't fun and if it really wasn't a better way of life, I wouldn't still be sober.
Clayton, once again, thank you so much. Thank you for being brave enough to share your story. That's not easy to do. And we're so excited to see what life after recovery can look like. You're a great example.
Thank you.
Well, coming up next, we're going to talk to more people at ACR and find out how they are helping support our community members. Brandon Carson is the intake coordinator here at ACR, and he's joining me to tell me about his role at ACR and the various people that he's helped. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Now, Brandon, just tell me about your role at ACR. What exactly do you do for them?
I'm a peer here. I help with the intake process and I do a lot of the follow-up calls. I keep in touch with a lot of the people that we help, make sure their services are being met as far as funding, and seeing how they're doing in the recovery, seeing if they're going to meetings, seeing if they have a sponsor, things like that, just making sure that they're really striving to do the best that they can.
Now, when someone does come to ACR, how long are they usually involved? Is there a certain time length that they're with you for?
Usually about a year. We like to keep up with clients for about a year. After a year, we still keep up with them if we need to talk with them a lot more or if they need additional services. But yeah, just about a year.
What would you say are some of the most valuable services that you actually offer?
I would say the ability to help people financially. We help them with funding to their sober living. We also help them with other things like expungement and groceries, just anything that they really need to help them get started on their next chapter in their life.
Can you talk a little bit about what brought you here and what made you go into recovery?
Absolutely. When I first started on this journey in recovery, I felt hopeless. I felt like there was no way out. And I knew something had to change because I kept doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And when I tried a different thing, I got a different result. And so far, that result has been positive.
What would you say really keeps you motivated to keep going?
Just by seeing people's faces and going and being able to talk and being active in my network as far as recovery goes, and I get a lot of motivation from seeing people who stay sober for long periods of time, and just by seeing the newcomer actually wanting to be sober, I see myself in them when I see them trying to do the same things I do, and I give them pointers and tips and tell them, hey, that's not a good idea. Hey, this is a good idea. Hey, this is what you need to do to make your life better.
Brandon, thank you so much for all that you do for the community and for all the resources that you provide. It's important, and we're lucky to have someone like you.
Thanks, Christy. It's a pleasure to work for ACR.
Well, coming up next, we're going to hear more about the various services and how they can help you or maybe a family member that needs their help. Shawn Partain is the outtake coordinator here at ACR. She actually wears many hats here, and she's here to tell us all about it. Hi, Shawn.
Hi, how are you?
Great, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Shawn, like I mentioned, you wear very many hats here at ACR, so tell us about your role.
Yeah, so initially I was hired to do female peer support here, and then I also started our online presence and working with the community, doing some outreach.
Well, you have a history yourself. I've known you for a long time, and your life has really changed drastically. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so initially I became an ACR client in 2013 when I was originally getting sober, and what my life looked like then was I had a 2-year-old son, and I was in treatment, entering a sober living house, and at that time I had no financial means to pay for my stay there, and ACR brought me on as a client. They did the intake process and offered me financial support in that house and then peer support along the way, and I was there for over a year. And then from there, I mean, my life has gradually just gotten better. I have 2 children now. My oldest, that was 2 at that time, is now 11 and is a 6th grader this year. So just things look a lot different than it did when I first got sober.
How does your role impact the organization and help with services for the clients?
So my role at ACR, working with individuals, I work with women and I specialize in women and children. So my role here to help the clients initially enter into recovery is, connecting them to services and seeing where they're at and offering them whatever the services is that they need at that time.
What goals does ACR really look for to determine recovery wellness?
So when we're working with clients and we are doing follow-up calls, we ask some specific questions to see where they're at. We ask them if they're sober still. We ask them if they are employed, if their living arrangements are conducive for their recovery, if they're in school, if they want to go back to school, if they have a criminal history, if they've expunged that criminal history, if they're currently still involved with their with the court systems. And so those are some things that we use to kind of measure recovery wellness and offer them support in those areas. And then also, even if they are meeting all those things, we ask them if they need additional support for like counseling, relapse prevention, and get those emotional needs met as well.
Right. I mean, they're so important. And what piece of advice would you give to someone that was in your shoes? Like, why should they pursue recovery? It's possible, right?
Yes, it definitely is possible. I think that me and myself and a lot of people in this community are a great example of that it is possible. And when I initially got sober, I didn't think that it was. I think that when you first get sober, it's extremely hard. And starting the momentum to stay sober can be difficult, but once you get going, it becomes a lot easier. And as you get sober and stay sober, you'll find people who are supportive and can help you meet any kind of goal that you need and continue to provide that support so that you can stay sober.
Now, not only is this so hard for the person going through the addiction, but it's also really hard for the families. Do you offer support for the families as well?
So at ACR, I think that family is something that we definitely try to focus on as well. Our executive director, Linda, lost her daughter to addiction, and that was the whole purpose of this organization initially, was to help people that were struggling, like her own daughter and children that she knew. So we have counselors that offer family sessions. We can connect them to. We offer peer support to anybody who's calling in. And we also have support groups in the community that we can refer to for the family, because it goes beyond the individual that's suffering from addiction. Everybody in the house or anybody in the family unit is affected, and if that family isn't also offered some support, a lot of times they can negatively impact that individual's recovery, or also be left with a lot of residual trauma and just like negative effects from that individual's use.
Thank you, Sean, so much for everything. And these services are just so wonderful to have right in our backyard.
Thank you for having me again.
ACR has helped so many people from recovery to now go on and lead full, fulfilling lives. Coming up next, we're going to meet one of those people who has gone through recovery, and he's going to tell us what it's like on the other side. Now, it's my pleasure to be joined with Tony Sipple. Tony is a client of ACR, and he's here to tell us about how he got involved with him and how he's doing today, which is great, by the way. Tony, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Kirsty.
Now, Tony, what first brought you to ACR? How did you learn about them?
I needed help with funding to help fund my recovery house. And what I did was I quit my job in order to take the certificate classes to be a peer and help people find recovery. And I was out of funding. I was out of money. And it was either go back to work and stop my classes or reach out to find the funding. And I called around, and there really wasn't much available. When I called ACR, I talked to one of the peers there, and they helped me. They funded me the extra 4 weeks I needed to be able to get my certificates, to be able to get my training, and I am now a peer.
Well, tell me about how did your addiction first begin? Like, what first got you involved in all this?
It started at a young age. I grew up in a family, that we're all addicted to drugs. I grew up in a household of all women, and just seen it going on. I thought it was the right thing to do when I started, thought it was harmless, which turned out it wasn't. I came from a rough family, foster homes, detention centers, orphanages, all the way up until I was 20. I was taken away from my family at 5 for sexual, mental, physical abuse. I was later able to come home at 18. I never had a childhood, so what I did is ran wild. I tried to find it any way I could. It became a problem quickly, though.
And what made you decide, I need to change? I need to get help?
I've realized through a lot of different treatment programs, finally, that when it comes to addiction, drugs are just a symptom, in my opinion, and that it stems from a trauma, an emotional trauma that I wasn't able to relay or felt the fear of being judged. But I quickly came to realize once I was able to be real and be open, be an open book, and work on the issues within inside myself, that it allowed me to actually start to recover.
What does life look like today compared to what it looked like several years ago?
Today, I am at the Voices of Hope Recovery House in Cecil County, Maryland. I have a strong network of peers and sponsors and brotherhood inside the Narcotics Anonymous program and throughout recovery in general. I am almost done my certifications for my peer recovery specialist. I have my CHW, which is community health worker. I work at Voices of Hope as a peer, helping people get into recovery, giving them the resources they need to take their life back.
Tony, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. It's very brave and very inspiring because a lot of people will really resonate with what you said to us today.
Well, Christy, thank you for having me today. I very appreciate it.
Well, we have much more to come. Stay with us. Joe Ryan is the president of the board here at ACR, and he's here to talk about all the experience that he's had and some of the success stories that have come out of this wonderful organization. Joe, thanks again for being with us. Great to see you again.
Same here, and welcome to ACR.
Joe, you're president of the board. You've been with them for a while. So tell us about the board of directors here at ACR.
Sure, thank you, Chrissy. What our board does is we give guidance to all the good workers here at ACR. We want to make sure we have our financial ability to do all the great work that they do. We want our team to be connected to the community. Just to give guidance. I mean, they do such great work. It's really an enjoyable job. It's an easy job because we have such a great staff here at ACR. It's an enjoyment to see the clients that they work with, to see their success, to become sober moms, sober dads, see them start their own businesses, see them be successful in the workforce. ACR is truly an asset to Harford County and the surrounding area. It makes Harford County a better place.
Joe, you are very passionate about this role. What does ACR really mean to you personally?
I saw firsthand working for the county the great work that Linda Williams, Doe Ladd, Barb Mason, that they did. And they were hitting all the notes that needed to be worked on. And we saw the success, and I knew that was something to get behind to help deal with the addiction issues in our county. Addiction in Harford County is behind closed doors. It wasn't out on the streets like we see in Baltimore City. So I knew that was going on. And look, we come to work every day to improve everybody's life. And that's the joy of being part of this organization, is the success stories that we see. You know, great nurses, CPAs, ladies and gentlemen that now own businesses. I mean, the thank you notes that we get here in the office is just worth reading, and it's worth all the time and effort helping all those individuals.
Oh, absolutely. And as a board member, what's your most important role in the community?
Well, I think just to keep the name of ACR out there. When addiction hits a family, they really don't know what to do. They've never experienced. And we want the community to know that there's resources out there, that families are not alone. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Treatment works, recovery is possible, and we want to hold their hand with those individuals to get to sobriety and help the families support their loved ones.
Oh, absolutely. And ACR, talk about the growth throughout the years.
Yes, I mean, I was there when those four moms got together, and I really was impressed by their enthusiasm. And I knew that that was a hidden gem that needed to be cultivated, and I was in a position to be able to do that. And they have helped so many people over the last 20 plus years. That was sort of the joy of the job. And after I retired from the county, I wanted to still be involved with that, so I volunteered to be on the board. And then a few months later, the board voted me in as president, and it's been truly a rewarding position during my retirement.
Joe, thank you so much again for everything that you do for ACR and for everything that you do for Harford County.
And thank you for helping get the word out of the great work that we do.
Absolutely, great organization. So as you've heard from Joe, recovery is possible, and they are here to help you, and they will walk you through it every step of the way. As you have seen today, ACR helps individuals by providing them with services that help promote strength and recovery. If you or someone you know can benefit from their services, reach out to them at acrhelps.org. I'm Christy Breslin. See you next month on Harford MagaScene. you.